Tell us about Warcradle Studios and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, okay, so we've had for quite a while now, we've had Wild West Exodus. We released it about 18 months ago, and we're now moving into a new phase for the game, which is quite exciting. So originally, when the game first came out, it was about making sure that we could sort of show people what the game was. You know, it's a Wild West game, but it's more than just a Wild West game. There's a lot more to it than that. So it was spent in kind of bringing out the right kind of products, the right kind of miniatures and things that kind of excited people, but also were kind of true to that theme. In the second year, which is what we're nearing the end of now, we had the kind of consolidated. So we built on what we'd released, and we released kind of things that made people kind of check again and think, oh, okay, what's this? Well, you know, okay, it's a Wild West game, but why is there this giant flying, burning eagle thing? What's this huge, weird mole creature and stuff like that? So it allowed us to have a little bit more fun and kind of really expand the setting out. But all of this is groundwork, because Wild West Exodus is only the first of a series of games that are coming out for the Dystopian Age. The Dystopian Age is the setting. Okay. It's an alternate history, so it's around the 1870s. It's an alternate history of our own. Things, different forces, different influences are kind of shifting the way that humanity's developed. Lots of things are recognisable and familiar to how things have been in our world. But there's also quite a few differences, and
yeah, I think we were talking to someone the other day, and he said something about Abraham Lincoln didn't actually die; he faked his death, and now he's like the super spy or something.
So you have these 8 great factions, or these 8 great powers in the world. The Union, which is the Union of Federated States, which is roughly equivalent to the United States. That is one of them, and in that one, so Lincoln has been assassinated, but actually the reality is he wasn't assassinated. He arranged with one of his own agents to be assassinated, as it were. So the guy that assassinated Lincoln was actually a great patriot, because he died in order that Lincoln could then step away from the public scene. Lincoln he's now Director Lincoln, and he now runs the Secret Service. So he protects and defends America effectively from the shadows. He runs a shadow war against America's enemies. And that's just a kind of a one instance of where there's like a whole bunch of other changes in the world. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's definitely a very heavy minis-based game. These minis look just amazing. Tell us about I guess the tainted biology. I keep on seeing these things with these red bubbles on them.
So this is an example of. So in the world there are various technologies and things that are in the world which what's happened is that humanity normally in our world, everything that humanity has developed, any technology that humanity has developed, we've earned. Slowly but surely. We've developed one technology and that's then led to another technology and another and so on. And by and large, social change has been influenced by or has influenced these developments and these changes. In the dystopian age, that isn't the case, because there are extraterrestrial or extra normal presences, factions or whatever that have come and are involved in what's going on. Some of the technology that they use has fallen into the hands of the ingenious members of our own society, and that in turn has then led to these giant leaps in certain areas of technology that aren't necessarily related to each other, and none of the moral or the emotional maturity that comes with those discoveries has happened. So you have, in this instance with tainted biology, somebody like Victor Vitale, who is a genius scientist. He's looking to kind of improve himself, improve his own physical body by experimenting with this strange substance which is called RJ1027. Various experiments he has around him, like the 2 dogs behind him, Castor and Pollux. They're an example of the kind of things that you can do with RJ1027. But he's experimenting on himself. He's trying to find a way to make like kind of a superhuman, as it were. But he doesn't want to have giant boiling blisters of weird fluids and things. He wants to kind of do it in a more controlled way. So how he currently is, he's this giant of a man. That's where his experimentation has taken him so far. He's also kind of gathered around him various hucksters and snake oil salesmen and circus freaks and other things, all of which are either have got their own concoctions that he's trying to use, but also maybe have something in their own biology that's of interest to him that might be resistant to these treatments that he's working on. So he's a really interesting character, and as a posse, which is how one of the building blocks of the game, the posse is themed around this very strong, charismatic individual, and that's true for any of the factions, be it Johnny Ringo with the Cowboys, or Billy the Kid with the Regulators, or even the Amber Alpha and her Amber Clade.
Very cool, very cool. So the setting looks amazing. Tell us a little bit about the gameplay of the various. I guess you have multiple types of games that are involved in this.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that.
So, Wild West Exodus, as I said earlier, is just the first of a number of games that are in this setting. So Wild West Exodus has a sister game called Lost World Exodus, which is due out next year, and that's going to take, whereas this is set in the Badlands of America, Lost World Exodus is set out in the distant jungles of Antarctica. The reason there's jungles in Antarctica is explained in the background of the game.
I'm smelling dinosaurs for some reason.
How interesting. So the great big expeditions from these major powers, the Latin Alliance, the Prussian Imperium, the British Crown, and the Union as well, are sending these expeditionary forces down into the area to kind of see what riches are there, see what resources, see what advantage they can gain over the other great powers of the world. And that's what you'll be playing in there. You take a contingent, which is like a posse, and your contingents are going down there on behalf of your country to seek glory and fortune and fame. The great thing about it, though, is that Lost World Exodus and Wild World Exodus, they share a game engine, which means narratively they're completely separate, they have nothing to do with each other, but in terms of for casual play and for competitive play, you can take the French Foreign Legion and you can battle against Jesse James and his outlaws and so on. You can have these mashups, and it's properly balanced, properly designed to work together, but at the same time, if you're a fan of one or other of the settings, narratively they're kept pure, so you haven't got the French Foreign Legion running around in the Wild West in the storyline. That would be a bit weird.
Right.
So, but that's
so it's primarily like a tabletop skirmish kind of thing.
Both of those games are tabletop skirmish games. Okay. There are a whole bunch of other things. I mean, we have card games and board games and all sorts of other role plays and things that are in development for the setting. The other major game, which is a really important one for the setting, is a game called Dystopian Wars, which you can see some of the artwork and the poster here.
Yes.
Okay. So, while Dystopian Wars is a naval game set in that world, it doesn't have like the Outlaws and the Warrior Nation. It's the factions that can have those kind of naval conflicts. They are the major global powers. So you're talking. So you have things like the Chinese, you have the Japanese, you have the French, you have the Italians, you have the British. So the players of Dystopian Wars will be able to...
The typical naval powers.
The big naval powers. They'll be able to collect these fantastically detailed dystopian age era styled naval vessels, as well as airships and fighters and submarines and all the stuff. And then on the high seas, they'll do battle against each other and try and sort of exert. It's basically these big nations flexing their muscles and trying to exert control over various key staging points over the world. And there'll be objectives. We'll have like sea forts and mining rigs and island chains and all sorts of things that you can battle over. And that will be Dystopian Wars. And again, that's had an open beta, for a public open beta earlier on in the year. The beta's now finished, and we're now moving into the development of the game in the studio. And we're looking for a release within the next 6 months.
Nice. Now, I noticed there's like a nice kind of over-the-top kind of aesthetic to the minis and such here. Does that carry over into the Dystopian Wars?
Yeah, I mean, because of the scale, because of the size of the ships and things, some of the more outlandish things. I mean, you're not going to have, you're not going to start to have lots and lots of tiny details all over it, because at the end of the day, it's still a large naval vessel. It's still going to have the large features of so the engines, the turbines, the fuel stacks, the bridge, and things. Those things are going to be on there, but there are flourishes as well. There are some stylized things. So the French, for example, Napoleon III, who is currently on the throne in France, he's trying to kind of resurrect a kind of a golden age of France, a glory days of France. So there's a little bit more kind of gilt working and things on the hull. There's more kind of a little more ornamentation on there, because he wants to kind of recreate that the style and the grandeur of like a century and a half earlier.
That makes sense.
Whereas the
very tall boats.
Whereas the British Crown, on the other hand, you can see from here on some of the prows of the ships, they've got some ornamentation. They've got lions and on the forecastles and things like that.
Nice.
But that's more about it being they are symbolic of the projection of power of the crown. The British Empire, the British Crown in the dystopian age is a fading power. It was totally dominant in the world, but now with younger, newer powers such as the Prussian Imperium, the Union, and others are really pushing at the edges. The Crown is finding itself kind of being reduced. Its influence in the world is being reduced. So these ships now really represent British power out there. They're very much like floating fortresses as Victoria tries to cling on to what control of the world that she still has.
Yeah, and I think I heard something mentioned about instead of torpedoes, like weaponized whales or something like that.
So you have the Enlightened, which are the faction over here. Gustav Eiffel for the Enlightened. I don't know if you can see him there, the big spider walker guy.
Yeah.
Yep. So the Enlightened are a coalition of scientists, architects, designers from all over the world who have allied together, mainly because they've seen that their talents, their gifts are being misused by the nations that they call home, and they're being perverted in the course of war. And originally the idea from the Enlightened was that they would gather together their own, they would share their information together in as a society, and they would use it collectively for the betterment of humanity. Now the reality is that over the years things have changed, and more often than not now the Enlightened are finding that they themselves have had to kind of deploy much of their genius and technology in protecting themselves and in kind of safeguarding their own secrets. And so there is a militarizing nature to a lot of what they do. One of the examples will be, there's a vessel called the Control Ship, which is like a halfway between a battleship and a carrier, but it carries sperm whales to be precise, 5 setters. And they've been surgically modified with various plug-in bits and pieces. And the idea is that if the control ship is under attack, it has a crane network. It can lift up these 5 setters. They plug in. A bit like many years ago, there's a cartoon like the Centurions, Power Extreme.
Yeah.
Plug in all the various bits and pieces that they need for these whales to do whatever function they need to do, and then in a high-pressure tube, they then launch them back into the water, and the whales will then, with a bit of programming and with trained instinct as well, the whales will then either hang around other Enlightened ships and protect them, which they're very, very good at, or they can go ahead and they can make an attack run on the enemy ships and swim underneath and release mines or use cutting lasers or all sorts of things to cause havoc to the enemy fleet. So yeah, that would be one of the things the more unusual things. But then the Japanese have got giant mechanical squid that they use under the water that can kind of like crush hulls. The Chinese have got some big flying rotary dragon war machines and things, and the Prussians, the German people, have got gigantic robots that kind of launch themselves up the seabed, burst onto the surface, and then start railing into the sides of the enemy ship. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world, as well as proper battleships and dreadnoughts and carriers and all the other stuff that you would expect in a naval game.
Awesome.